everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Restoring the Roar. I am your host, Alex Loosemore, and it's going to be a short, simple show tonight. It's just going over the 53-man roster. Going to keep the rest of it for next week, going the night before Lions and Chiefs NFL season kickoff. It's just going to be the 53-man roster tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix something here that I should have fixed before the show. But it is what it is. If you like what we're doing here, like, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and like some of the guys here, like Sean's doing here, comment. What's up, Alex? Thank you for tuning in, Sean. We just got off the college show together. And I just turned right around to do this show. So, thank you for tuning in, man. Antoine Green, I am so glad he made the roster. I'll get into it in a little bit when I talk to wide receivers, but I'm really glad he made the roster. He was one of the guys I was rooting for here. So, before I get into it, the show is partnered with Zagnif Apparel. Thank you again to Zagnif Apparel for the partnership. Use the code word FOOBS15 and get 15% off on select items. Go to the link. I'm going to throw this banner down below. Go to etsy.com/shop/Zagnif Apparel Design and enter the code word FOOBS15 at checkout for 15% off. Thank you again for the partnership. So, I'm just going to go through. I still have my predicted ones from last week, so I'm going to show the prediction and what actually happened and just kind of talk about it, give my thoughts, and there's a few really surprising ones in my opinion. So we'll start off with the quarterback. I had Goff and Bridgewater making the roster with Hendon Hooker on the NFI list, the non-football injury list. As I explained last week, obviously it is a football injury, but it was a non-NFL injury, so they go on the NFI list. So Hendon Hooker was left on the NFI list, so he cannot be activated for the first 4 weeks. They've pretty much said once he's ready to go, the first opportunity they can, they're activating him. But the actual roster, it's Goff and Bridgewater. It makes sense. I kind of feel bad because I said I wanted Sudfeld gone pretty much at all costs. I didn't envision him tearing his ACL in the last preseason game. I wanted him to be able to go find a job elsewhere, but his season's over, which sucks. I hate for that to happen to anybody. More specifically, somebody I kind of had ill will for. But hopefully he gets well soon, and hopefully he can find a job elsewhere. I'm just going to scroll the guys we've signed to the practice roster so far on the bottom. Might give a few away, but it is what it is. Running back, my prediction, I thought this was very solid. I had Montgomery, Gibbs, Craig Reynolds, and Jason Kaminda coming back as a fullback. Kind of shockingly, they let Craig Reynolds go. So, and he hasn't signed anywhere yet. He's not on a practice roster, to my knowledge. I was hoping we'd bring him back, although the fact that we brought Bam Knight in on the practice roster makes me think he might be gone. But Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are the only guys on the active roster. Obviously, Kaminda as the fullback, but that's a lot of faith in two running backs to stay healthy. Now, they're going to share the load a lot, so hopefully Jason Sway didn't hear what I just said there, but they're going to split the carries a lot, so hopefully it should keep them healthy in the long run, but really surprised they let Craig Reynolds go. It's a guy that started for them a few times over the last couple of years. Came in on a day's notice when he first made the roster. Balled out in the preseason game, and that's what locked him into the roster. He's been a solid guy for us over the last 2 years. I was really sad to see him go. Like I said, hopefully they can get him on the practice roster. You get 15 spots. And we've filled, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's a couple more spots to fill. It's not looking likely, but hopefully we can bring them back. Moving on to the wide receivers. Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, I put in here. Obviously, he's suspended. and I stated that going in. But Marvin Jones, Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, and I also thought Dylan Drummond and Antoine Green. I wanted Chase Cota as well, but I thought he was going to be the odd man out. Ben, thank you for tuning in. Say good evening, sir. I just realized I forgot to send it to the group chat like I said I would. So I will do that now. But yeah, back to these wide receivers. I love that Antoine Green made the roster. I really thought he deserved to make it. He was balling out, played all 4 sets of special teams, was solid as a receiver in the preseason games. He was kind of up and down during practice, but yeah, during the games he balled out, played very well, earned himself a spot on the roster. Yeah, I know, Ben. I know. Yeah, but Antoine Green, yeah, I thought he was a lock to get in. I thought Drummond as well. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the practice roster down below, he's on the practice roster. We brought him back. And Jameson Williams, I didn't put him in because he's not on the 53-man roster. He's on that suspended list. You'll see in a bit. I have a spot for people that will be on the 53-man roster later on. But the 53-man roster, the initial guys for wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, Marvin Jones, Josh Reynolds, Antoine Green. This is an interesting group because until Jameson Williams gets back, Amon-Ra St. Brown's locked down the slot. Khalif Raymond's your backup slot guy, also your returner. Then, I mean, Marvin Jones, Josh Reynolds, Antoine Green. There's 3 guys competing for 2 outside receiver spots. It's going to be interesting to see how they do it. And I'm kind of surprised they only kept 5 receivers off the bat. Typically, you want to try and keep 6. But 2 running backs and a fullback and 5 receivers, not 6. They also shorted a couple other positions to keep some more on the defensive side, which I'm okay with. There's a couple of guys that I thought I wanted back, and then I didn't think they were going to be back, and they are. So, really happy to see that. But, I mean, this is an interesting group of wide receivers. Antoine Green's got a lot of room here to come in and make some playing time here. Scott said, I'm here with Hendon Hooker. He's trying to get out of his contract to come to the Rams. Well, that's too damn bad. He's staying in Detroit, and he's going to like it here. I know he will. The tight ends here. I predicted Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, James Mitchell. I feel like it would have been interesting had Shane Zylstra not torn his ACL, like right off the bat, this training camp. That would have been 4 guys for 3 spots. They might have kept 4. But as soon as he went down, it was pretty easy to pick the 3. And that's the 3 they went with. It's pretty simple here. Mitchell catches every ball thrown at him. He's got glue on his hands or something because he plays phenomenal as that receiving tight end, but he's not that great of a blocker, which pushes him down to the 3rd tight end. Brock Wright, better blocker than he is a receiver, but he's still a pretty decent receiver. And Laporta's your do-it-all guy. He's nasty. He wants to get in and block. He's got really good hands. Can run basically the full route tree. I cannot wait to see Laporta and Goff for 60 minutes on a field every Sunday or Thursday. We've got, 4 Thursday games this year. I'm excited to see how he does. Yeah, very, very excited. The offensive line. So I had, 9 guys projected? 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I had 9 guys projected. I felt like this was a pretty solid group. I mean, Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, Glasgow, Sewell, and Vaitai, I thought were all locks. Nelson was pretty much a lock too. And just Colby Sorsdal, the way he had been playing this preseason, I thought he played very well and earned himself a spot on the roster. And he did. I was one off, though. They only kept 8 offensive linemen, which I'm shocked by. You're asking for trouble there. I mean, obviously, you've got a few guys on the practice squad there. But, I mean, you got Vaitai goes down pretty regularly, so then you're going on Glasgow, who's your guard and center mix. Obviously, you have Sorsdal for a guard as well, but you've got 1 tackle as well. So, interesting choice. I would have kept. I mean, there was a reason I said for them to keep Ifedi. It gives you another tackle guy, but it is what it is. Yes, sir. What number is it on the depth chart for Green? Yeah, I'd say he's probably 5th on the depth chart, but he's gonna work his way up. I think. I personally do. His willingness to play special teams, and he's improving as that outside receiver, and it gives him a little bit of extra speed on the outside. I expect him to play a fair bit, especially as a rotational wide receiver. I don't know that he'll get the start, but he'll play often, I would say. Yeah, that was one of my main takeaways, though. 8 offensive linemen, kind of questionable in my opinion, but it is what it is. Edge rushers. So I predicted Hutchinson, Romeo Okwara, Charles Harris, and James Houston. I thought Julian Okwara was going to get traded, and turns out I was wrong because they kept him as well. So Hutchinson, Harris, James Houston, Romeo Okwara, and Julian Okwara. I love this set of edge rushers. Hutchinson, and Okwara both actually are solid in that run stopping. Harris, Houston, and Julian Okwara get after it. I mean, Julian Okwara was an animal this preseason. Played very well. I thought he had played himself out of Detroit, getting traded. I know the Giants had been in talks about him. But very glad we got to keep him. Yeah, as I said, I love this group of edge rushers because, I mean, you have some of those tweeners as well with the interior defensive line, which I'll get to in a second, but it's a very solid group of guys to get after the passer, which Detroit hasn't had in a long time. Very excited for that group. The interior defensive line, I had Lee McNeil, Isaiah Buggs, John Kaminsky, Josh Paschal, Broderick Martin, which I realize now that I spelled it wrong the first time, and Levi Onwuzurike. I thought he'd make the roster. I had Benito Jones just missing out. But this is another one where they kept an extra guy. Taking one less guy on offense. Benito Jones did make the roster. So it's Lee McNeil, Isaiah Buggs, John Kaminsky, who's one of those tweener guys. Josh Paschal's one of those tweener guys. Broderick Martin, who's McNeil's backup. He's that pure nose tackle. Levi Onwuzurike, I'm really excited to see him make the roster, and I want to see him get on the field because he's that second-round pick, and if he's what people were expecting to be coming out of Washington, this D-line just got a whole lot better by him making the roster. And Benito Jones, a good depth D-tackle guy. Nothing more, nothing less. He's good at what he does, which is just come in and spell the other guys so they can get a breather, basically. Linebacker, I had 5 guys. I had Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Malcolm Rodriguez, Derek Barnes, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. They kept another one. I didn't like this pick. They also kept Anthony Pittman. He's an okay special teams guy. I mean, you had other guys to take those spots, though. And realistically, you could have kept someone like Craig Reynolds over Anthony Pittman. I don't like the decision, but, I mean, obviously I trust in what they're doing because it's worked over the past few years. Excited to see who starts these for these first few games, those 2 linebackers. It seems like it's pretty much a 3-horse race between Anzalone, Barnes, and Campbell. Rodriguez has kind of just slipped into that rotational linebacker, but special team stud. He's taken that role in stride and played very well with it. And he hasn't complained one bit. So I love what he's doing. Scott said Lions roster sounds like credits for a Wrong Turn movie. I mean, we'll see. We'll see records at the end of the year there, Scott. We'll see whose team's better. They said Rams are set now. They got a kicker from the Cowboys. When I heard the news, my stomach roared. Looks like it's Tank for Williams or May. I don't think you guys will be quite that bad, but you guys won't be very good. Yeah, Pittman's somebody I would have liked to see on the practice roster, especially seeing some of the guys we got on the practice roster. I mean, Chase Lucas, I would have loved to have. Drummond, obviously, I really wanted. Bam Knight, seeing that he made it, I was like, okay, he can make the main roster here. But I mean, it is what it is. My corner prediction. Here's where I had a bunch of guys. I had Emmanuel Mosley, Cam Sutton, Brian Branch, Jerry Jacobs, Will Harris, Starling Thomas, Chase Lucas, and Stephen Gilmore. Starling Thomas, unfortunately, didn't make it through waivers. He got picked up by the Cardinals, so he's on their practice squad. So best of luck to him in Arizona. Chris, you bastard, your team took a guy I really wanted, but you can't keep them all. So Thomas is in Arizona. Chase Lucas, obviously, we saw on the Lions practice roster. But what about Stephen Gilmore? He made the roster. Stephon Gilmore's younger brother made the roster as an undrafted free agent out of Marshall. So the corners we have are Cam Sutton, Jerry Jacobs, Emmanuel Mosley, who they took off of the physically unable to perform list. So he is ready to go for week 1. Well, he's on the game day roster for week 1. We'll see if he's actually ready to go. If not, Jerry Jacobs will take his place on the outside. Brian Branch locking down that nickel corner. Will Harris kind of being that depth guy all over the place. He's got versatility and experience at all 5 spots. And then Stephen Gilmore. I'm so glad he made the roster. He's gritty. He's nasty. Plays that really good man coverage. So I'm excited. Hopefully he can get in and get some playing time and build on the great preseason he had. And we also had Khalil Dorsey make the roster, who I didn't necessarily think was going to make the roster, but he's another one of those special teams guys and does pretty well at it. So not surprised to see him make the roster. I just didn't, in my predictions, I didn't think he was going to. Scott said, is Brian Branch related to Cliff Branch? I actually don't know. That's an interesting one. I'll look it up after the show, unless you want to look it up now and tell the people in the comments what the result is there. But yeah, just comparing this to the corner group we had last year. I mean, you still had Harris, you still had Jerry Jacobs, Khalil Dorsey, I believe, was on the practice roster last year. But you switch out Sutton, Mosley, Brian Branch, Stephen Gilmore, and last year we had Okudah, Amani Oruwariye, and I forget his name now. I mean, he wasn't great, but yeah. So I mean, massive upgrade, huge depth upgrade, which you're seeing across the defense in general. So I'm super excited to watch this defense play, and you get a tough test week 1. I'm playing the best quarterback in football, currently the best coach in football. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a tough test. I cannot wait to see how they do. And the last part of the back end here, safeties. I had C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Kirby Joseph, and Tracy Walker. Now, if you remember, going into last week, I said there was the competition between Savion Smith and Ifeatu Melifonwu. I said if both were healthy, I'd have one of them take the last spot. But they had both gotten injured in that last game, so I said neither of them would make it. Obviously, Melifonwu's injury isn't that bad because he made the roster. It's Gardner-Johnson, Kirby Joseph, Tracy Walker, and Ifeatu Melifonwu, who's going to play a lot of special teams for the Lions here. And he does a damn good job of it. He's also a very solid tackler, willing tackler when he gets in on defense, which I love to see. I like this safety group too, man. This is a very solid group. And then the special teams, Riley Patterson, Jack Fox, and Scott Daly was my prediction. And that's what we came up to. I figured that Patterson would be Parker Romo there, the USFL kicker. Patterson isn't great, but he's not awful. I mean, there's better kickers out there. Apparently, we were out there looking for kicker trades. So they're obviously not thrilled with Patterson, but he was the better of the two. Sean said Cliff and Brian aren't related. Well, there we go. There's the answer. You were looking for Scott. And then Jack Fox, one of the better punters in football. Scott Daly. It's hard to tell who's a great long snapper and who's. It's easy to tell if you're not. But all the guys, realistically, in the NFL are great long snappers, very consistent. So it's hard to tell when you've got an elite one. But Scott Daly's been good for us. And then, like I said before, the two people that will eventually be on the 53-man roster, Jameson Williams, as soon as his suspension is up going into week 7, he'll be on the roster. And Hendon Hooker, like I said before, once he's healthy, he might not be on the official 53-man roster. But if you remember the rule coming in for that third quarterback to be able to make the game day roster and not take up a spot on the 53-man roster, that will be Hendon Hooker once he's healthy. Washington cut Badgley. So that was the second team that cut him this offseason because he had also been cut by Tennessee and then went to you guys. And you guys cut him. And then he's on our practice roster, which I'm okay with because, I mean, we had him last year. He was all right. I mean, he's the same as Patterson. He's nothing special. But very happy with the roster we got this year. Very excited to see how they do. I think this is a big year for the Lions. And yeah, like I've been scrolling on the bottom here, this practice roster. I mean, I don't know much about Connor Galvin. Who else? And Chris Smith and Max Percher. Those are the three guys I'm not too familiar with. I love Chase Lucas. I love Dylan Drummond. Bam Knight's awesome. Maurice Alexander. Those are four guys that could have easily made the roster. Bam Knight, obviously, we picked him up off waivers, so he couldn't have made the official roster right off the bat. But, I mean, Badgley's a starting kicker in the NFL, in my opinion. Brandon Joseph, the safety, undrafted out of Notre Dame, played very well during the preseason. Glad to see him on the practice roster. Trevor Nowoski, he's a guy like Anthony Pittman. The same reason I said the Pittman should be down on this practice roster. Good special teams guy, but if he's got to play linebacker, you're in trouble, in my opinion. That's what it is. Teod Iwosika, solid like depth guard for him to be on the practice roster. I mean, we stole him from the Eagles practice roster last year after we played them. So, I really like this roster. Really excited for the year. You'll have to wait for our predictions show this Monday for NSD to see what I actually think of the Lions, how well they'll do, if they make playoffs. If they do, how far do they go? And the rest of my season predictions. So, Sean, you want to know about Washington, Scott with the Rams, and anyone else with their teams, tune in to NSD Monday night. I believe kind of same regular time, 9 p.m. Eastern. All the guys will be on, as far as I know, at least unless something's changed. We'll all be giving our full season predictions, going back and forth. We'll do the NSD stand-by-its. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a few. People are going to feel very differently about specific teams. And, like I said, we're a week from tomorrow. We're kicked off in Kansas City already for Lions Chiefs. And I could not be more excited. Sean, I like it. I don't know that I got that, but I like it. And Washington cut Bagley. Is Washington in charge? Oh, he says guarantee. Oh, okay. I like that. I like that a lot. I've currently, I mean, I've been going back and forth. There's times I think, yeah, we can absolutely beat them. Currently I'm at like a 45-42 kind of loss. I think it's going to be a very good game, very high scoring, two high-powered offenses. But I do think we fall just short. I mean, it's the defending champs. I don't think we're quite at that level yet, but I think we're a damn good football team. Scott, you got to talk to Andrew, my guy. He's the one running the show, and it's not a regular thing. That'll be one I'll have to tune into your show after, if that's one that we keep. And yeah, that's all I got. Like I said, short and sweet, just under half an hour. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, when I'm back next week on Wednesday, it is to preview the Lions-Chiefs Thursday night football game. We are so freaking close. You can almost taste it. Yeah, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy a lot of college football this weekend, and get yourself ready for some NFL football. See you next week.